When I think about that Christmas, I can still feel the pit in my stomach, the kind that sits there like a stone even when you're not sure why. My name's Ryan, I'm 27, and I used to think my family's small lies were harmless. You know, the kind you brush off because that's just how they are. But that year, I learned that sometimes the smallest lie can crack everything open, and once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. I grew up in a family where money was always tight. At least, that's what Mom would say every time I asked for something more expensive than the store-brand cereal. She'd sigh dramatically, like she was carrying the world on her shoulders, and I'd back down, feeling guilty for even asking. My younger cousins always seemed to have more: new clothes, new phones, even vacations, but I never questioned it much. Mom said their parents were reckless with money, and that we were the smart ones. Frugal, responsible. I believed her. I wanted to. I moved out when I was 21, after finally saving enough from working IT support at a small company. Mom cried when I told her. "You're abandoning me," she said, like I was walking out on a marriage, not just moving 20 minutes away. But I still visited often. I'd help with bills, groceries, fixing her Wi-Fi every time she forgot the password. She'd always say, "You're my rock, Ree," and that simple sentence would erase all my frustration. It made me feel needed, and that's how she kept me hooked. By the time Christmas rolled around last year, things were off. Mom had started acting distant, replying to my messages with one-word answers or not at all. When I called, she'd pick up sounding annoyed, like I'd interrupted something important. It was weird because I'd always been her go-to person. So when December hit, I decided I'd surprise her with something nice. I even booked a few days off work to spend Christmas at her house. Then, a week before the holidays, she called me out of the blue. Her voice had that overly casual tone she used when she was about to drop bad news. "Hey, sweetie. So, about Christmas this year," she began. "What about it?" I asked, half expecting her to say she wanted me to bring dessert again. "Well," she sighed, "money's tight right now. Between the bills and the car repairs and, just everything. I think we're going to have to cancel Christmas this year." "Cancel Christmas?" I repeated, laughing awkwardly. She chuckled too, but it wasn't a happy laugh. "Yeah, I mean, it's silly to waste money on gifts and all that when we can barely keep up with the electric bill. It's just one day, right?" I hesitated. "Mom, I can help with the bills if you need." "No, no," she cut in quickly. "You've done enough. I don't want you worrying about me, okay? Just, maybe we can do something small in January when things calm down." I didn't like it, but I respected it. If she said money was tight, then maybe it was. And honestly, I kind of admired her for being practical about it. So I didn't press. Christmas morning came, and I'll admit, it felt weird. I made myself coffee, microwaved some leftovers, and tried to pretend it didn't sting. Social media didn't help, of course. Everyone was posting family photos, trees, gifts, matching pajamas. I tried to stay off my phone, but boredom won. I ended up scrolling anyway. That's when I saw it. My cousin Emily had posted a story, a shaky video of a long dinner table, filled with people laughing, clinking glasses, and unwrapping gifts. My mom was in the middle of it, smiling wider than I'd seen in months. The tree behind her was glowing, surrounded by a mountain of presents. The caption read, "Best Christmas ever. Family is everything." I stared at my screen for a good minute before I realized I'd stopped breathing. I watched the story again, slower this time, like maybe I'd misread something. But no, there she was, my mom, in the same house she'd told me was too cold to heat for the holidays, wearing a brand new sweater and toasting champagne. And I wasn't there. I felt something sharp twist inside me. I wasn't angry yet, just hollow, like someone had scooped me out from the inside. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I didn't even watch the rest of Emily's stories. I just closed my phone and sat there in the quiet, trying to convince myself it didn't matter. But it did. The next day, I half expected her to call. Maybe she'd confess, say it was a last-minute thing, or that she didn't want me driving in bad weather. Something. But she didn't. In fact, 2 days later, she finally texted me. No greeting, no apology, just, "Hey honey, can you send $2,900 for bills?" The electric and property tax came at the same time. "I'll pay you back once my refund hits." I read that message at least 10 times, just to make sure I wasn't misreading it. My pulse was hammering. $2,900. After canceling Christmas. After excluding me from the one family event of the year. I typed my reply carefully, even though my hands were shaking. Didn't you cancel Christmas? Then I set the phone down. It started ringing 30 seconds later. I didn't pick up. Another call. Then another. I turned the phone off and sat in silence. That was the moment I realized something I'd avoided my whole life. My mom wasn't struggling. She was manipulating. And for the first time, I didn't play along. I thought ignoring her would make her back off, but it didn't. Over the next few days, things got worse. Calls from relatives, guilt trips, rumors. They all said the same thing. I was ungrateful, selfish, heartless. It was like she'd flipped a switch and turned everyone against me. But here's the thing about being the family scapegoat. When you've been painted as the villain long enough, you start to wonder what would happen if you actually became one. I didn't know it yet, but that was the start of something much bigger. Something that would tear through every lie she'd ever told. Because the more I started to dig into where that tight money was really going, the more I realized Christmas wasn't the only thing she'd been hiding. And what I found next changed everything. When the calls finally stopped, my apartment felt eerily quiet. You'd think silence would bring peace, but it didn't. It just left room for the thoughts to echo louder. Every few minutes, I'd glance at my phone like it might suddenly light up with a new explanation, a confession, something to make sense of it all. But it didn't. Instead, I got a single text from my cousin Emily later that evening. "Hey, sorry you couldn't make it. Everyone was asking about you. Everyone was asking about me." That line burned. They knew. They all knew. And no one said a word. I typed out half a dozen replies. Did Mom tell you I wasn't invited? Did she mention she canceled Christmas? Why didn't anyone call me? But I deleted them all. There was no point. They'd just side with her. They always did. I didn't realize how deep her web went until the following week. I got a call from Aunt Karen. One of those calls that starts with exaggerated concern. "Honey, what's going on with you and your mom?" she asked, voice dripping with performative sympathy. "She's been so upset, telling everyone how hurt she is that you've shut her out." I bit back a laugh. She's upset? She lied to me about canceling Christmas and then threw a party without me. There was a long pause on the other end. Then she sighed. "Ryan, you know how your mom is. She didn't mean to hurt you. You've always been sensitive." That word, sensitive, hit me like a slap. It was the same word Mom used whenever I dared to call her out on something. If she insulted me, and I pushed back, I was sensitive. If she borrowed money and didn't pay it back, and I mentioned it, I was dramatic. I hung up before Aunt Karen could finish her lecture. Over the next few days, I noticed a shift in how my family treated me. My cousin Ben stopped replying to my texts. My uncle didn't return my calls. Even my grandmother, who used to send me long voice notes about her garden, suddenly became too busy. It was like Mom had flicked a switch, and suddenly I was the family outcast. Then, on New Year's Eve, it happened. I hadn't planned to go out. I was exhausted, emotionally, mentally, all of it. I stayed in, made myself pasta, and decided to finally clear out my email inbox. That's when I saw it, a notification from PayPal. "Thank you for your payment of $1,250 to Emily's Events and Design." I froze. My PayPal? I didn't remember sending any money. I clicked into it, my stomach twisting tighter with each second. It was from my mom's email address, the one she'd used when I helped her set up her account 2 years ago. We'd linked my card temporarily to pay for a utility bill because hers wasn't working. I'd forgotten all about it. I checked my bank. The charge had gone through 3 days earlier. I scrolled further down, and my pulse started pounding in my ears. There were 3 more transactions, all from the same week. $600 to a catering and decor company, $850 to DJ Platinum Sound, $300 to luxury photo booth rentals. All of them within days of that Christmas party I wasn't invited to. My hands shook as I did the math. Nearly $3,000. The same amount she'd asked me for bills. That was when the dam broke. I wasn't numb anymore. I wasn't confused. I was angry. I called her immediately. She didn't answer. I called again. Still nothing. So I left a voicemail, my voice trembling with fury. "Hey Mom, hope you had fun at your budget-friendly Christmas. You might want to check your PayPal account, or better yet, your conscience, because I just saw where my money went." I hung up. 5 minutes later, my phone started blowing up. She called first, then texted, "Ryan, don't overreact. It was a misunderstanding. I was going to pay you back. You have no idea what I'm dealing with." Then came the classic, "After everything I've done for you." I didn't reply. Not a single word. I wanted her to sit in it, to feel, even for a moment, what it was like to be ignored and dismissed. 2 days later, she showed up at my apartment. I'll never forget the knock. 3 quick taps, then silence. I looked through the peephole, and there she was, holding a plastic container of leftover cookies like this was some casual visit. I opened the door halfway, not saying anything. She smiled like nothing was wrong. "Hi, sweetheart. Thought I'd stop by. I made too many cookies." "Really?" I said flatly. "Because it looks like you made just enough for everyone except me last week." Her smile faltered for a second, but came right back. "Oh, Ryan, are we really doing this? It was just a party. I didn't think you'd want to come. You always seem so tired lately." "You told me Christmas was canceled," I said. "You said money was tight." She sighed and pushed her way past me into the apartment. "Can we not do this in the hallway?" I stood there, arms crossed, watching her make herself comfortable on my couch. She looked around, inspecting my place the way she always did, like she was searching for evidence that I was doing better than her. "I didn't lie," she said finally, setting the cookies on the table. "Things were tight. But then your aunt offered to cover the food and decorations, and everyone insisted we do something small. I didn't want to bother you." "Then why did you use my card?" Her face tightened. "I didn't realize it was still linked. Honest mistake." "For times?" I asked. "You didn't realize it for separate times?" "Ryan, lower your voice," she snapped, glancing toward the window like my neighbors might be listening. "You're making this into something it's not." Something inside me cracked. I'd spent my whole life letting her rewrite reality like this, bending the truth until I doubted my own memory. But this time, I wasn't backing down. "Mom," I said slowly, "you stole from me. And you lied about it. Just admit it." Her eyes hardened. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you talk to me?" she hissed. "Who paid for your school lunches? Who helped you with your first car? Who stayed up all night when you had that fever at 9 years old?" I stared at her. "None of that gives you the right to steal from me." The air between us felt electric, tight and heavy. Then she stood up abruptly, brushing invisible crumbs off her hands. "You know what, Ryan? I don't need this attitude. I came here to make peace. But clearly, you'd rather hold grudges than family." She grabbed her bag and headed for the door. Before she left, she turned back and said, almost casually, "You'll regret treating me like this one day. Family is all you have." Then she was gone. I didn't move for a long time. Her words echoed in my head, twisting and tangling until I couldn't tell if I was angry or heartbroken. Maybe both. Over the next few weeks, the fallout spread like wildfire. My aunt texted me paragraphs about forgiveness. My cousin Ben messaged, "You really shouldn't air family business like that." Even Grandma left me a voicemail that broke my heart. "Ryan, your mother loves you. Please call her." Families fight, but they always come back together. But what none of them knew was that it wasn't just about the money. It was about the years of manipulation, the guilt, the way she'd made me believe I owed her my life. And I couldn't unsee it now. Still, I stayed quiet. I didn't block her. I didn't post anything. I just waited. I wanted to see how far she'd go to twist the story this time. It didn't take long. A month later, I got a call from my boss. "Hey, Ryan," he said cautiously. "Sorry to ask, but everything okay at home?" My stomach dropped. "Yeah, why?" He hesitated. "We got an anonymous email this morning. Something about you stealing from your mother and abandoning family responsibilities. I'm guessing it's nonsense, but HR has to follow protocol." I could barely speak. "Did it come from a Gmail address?" He paused, then said, "Yeah, something like Family Truths 2023. I didn't need to ask who sent it. That was the breaking point. I'd spent months trying to be calm, rational, forgiving. But when she tried to drag my name through the mud, at my workplace, no less, something in me changed. I wasn't going to play defense anymore. That night, I sat at my computer until 2 a.m., pulling together everything I had: screenshots, transactions, messages, voicemails, even recordings of her guilt tripping me for money. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to control the story anymore. And then, something happened that I didn't expect. A message popped up on Facebook from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, my dad's sister, Aunt Lisa. She'd been estranged from Mom since I was a kid. Her message was short. "Ryan, I saw what happened. Call me. I think it's time you knew the truth about your mom." I just sat there staring at the screen, heart pounding. Because if there was one person who might understand what I was going through, it was her. But I had no idea that calling her would uncover something so much darker than a stolen Christmas. I stared at Aunt Lisa's message for a long time. It had been nearly 15 years since I'd last seen her. She'd stopped coming around when I was 12, after some huge argument with my mom. Back then, Mom told me Lisa was jealous of her, that she was toxic and loved to stir up drama. I believed it, of course. Back then, I believed everything Mom said. But now, after everything that had happened, that single sentence, "I think it's time you knew the truth about your mom," felt like a thread I needed to pull. I called her the next morning. Her voice was softer than I remembered, but cautious, like she was afraid of saying too much too soon. "Ryan," she said after a pause, "I didn't think you'd call." "I almost didn't," I admitted. "But things have been bad. Mom's been lying, stealing, and now she's trying to ruin my name at work." Lisa sighed, long and heavy. "That sounds about right. She's been doing that kind of thing for years." "What do you mean?" There was a silence. One of those silences where you can hear someone deciding how much of the truth to share. Then she said, "Ryan, your mom has always been like this. She manipulates people until she gets what she wants. Then, when she can't anymore, she turns them into the enemy. She did it to me, to your dad, to everyone who ever tried to hold her accountable." I felt my throat tighten. "Dad," Lisa hesitated again. "You were young when they divorced. She told everyone he was an alcoholic who ran off with another woman, didn't she?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "That's what she always said." Lisa let out a bitter laugh. "Your father wasn't perfect, but that wasn't why he left. He left because she drained him. Financially, emotionally, everything. He paid the bills, worked 2 jobs, and she'd still make him feel like he wasn't doing enough. And when he finally tried to set boundaries, she turned you against him. It was like someone had punched the air out of me." "Wait, you're saying she lied about all of that?" "She lied about a lot," Lisa said. "When your dad stopped sending money directly to her, she told everyone he'd abandoned you. But he didn't. He tried to send you birthday gifts and cards. She sent them back unopened." I pressed a hand to my forehead, dizzy. "Why would she do that?" "Control," Lisa said simply. "Your mom doesn't love people the way most do, Ryan. She owns them. And when she feels like she's losing control, she'll do whatever it takes to get it back." That conversation changed something in me. It didn't fix anything right away, but it shifted the ground beneath my feet. For the first time, I wasn't looking at my mom as this misunderstood, struggling single parent. I was seeing her as a manipulator who'd built her life out of other people's sacrifices. Over the next few weeks, I started to pull away from all of it. The guilt, the chaos, the constant feeling that I owed her something. It all started to lose its grip. I stopped answering her texts. I muted the family group chat. I deleted Facebook. It wasn't anger anymore. It was exhaustion. But of course, when you stop feeding a manipulator, they panic. One afternoon in February, my building's manager called me down to the lobby. "Ryan," he said, "your mom's here. She says she needs to talk to you. She's been sitting in the car outside for 20 minutes. I looked through the glass doors, and there she was, sitting in her old sedan, staring straight ahead. For a second, I almost felt bad. She looked small, older somehow. But then I remembered the PayPal charges, the emails to my boss, the lies. I told the manager to tell her I wasn't available. He nodded, uncomfortable. That night, I got a text. "You can ignore me, but you can't erase me. Family is forever." I didn't reply. Eventually, the messages stopped. I thought maybe she'd finally moved on. But then, about a month later, my landlord called. "Hey, Ryan, sorry to bother you, but we received a call from a woman claiming to be your mother. She said you're moving out and that we should send her your security deposit." I almost laughed. "Of course she did," I muttered. That's when I realized just how far she was willing to go to maintain control. She didn't just want to guilt trip me. She wanted to ruin me. For a while, it worked. I started having trouble sleeping. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. replaying conversations, wondering if I'd been too harsh or if I was somehow overreacting. I stopped hanging out with friends, started showing up late to work. I felt like my life was shrinking, like everything was orbiting around this black hole she'd created. Then one night, something snapped. I was lying in bed, scrolling through my emails, when I found another one from HR. "Just confirming we resolved the family issue," it said. "Let us know if you need any support." Family issue. That phrase burned. I realized I was letting her win. I'd spent my whole life trying to please her, trying to fix things, trying to be the good son. But none of it had ever been enough. And it never would be. Because she didn't want peace, she wanted power. So I made a decision. Quietly, without telling anyone, I started rebuilding. I took on extra shifts. I cut back on expenses. I deleted old contacts who only reached out when drama was brewing. I even joined a gym, not because I suddenly cared about fitness, but because I needed something to focus on that wasn't her. At first, it felt strange, like learning how to live without background noise. But then, slowly, the silence started to feel like freedom. Around that time, Aunt Lisa reached out again. She invited me over for dinner, her first invitation in 15 years. I almost said no, but something in her voice felt sincere. So one Friday after work, I drove over. Her house was small but warm, the kind of place that smelled like baked bread and old books. When she opened the door, she hugged me like she'd been waiting years to do it. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. "You're stronger than you think." Over dinner, she told me stories about my dad, how he used to build model airplanes, how he'd talk about me all the time, how devastated he was when Mom cut him off. "Does he still live around here?" I asked. Lisa hesitated. "He moved a few states over. He's remarried now, but he still asks about you sometimes." That night, when I got home, I sat in my car for a long time, staring at my phone. I found his name in an old folder of contacts Mom had made me delete years ago. His number was still the same. It took me another week to get the courage to call. When I finally did, the line rang twice before a familiar but older voice answered. "Hello." I almost hung up, but then I said quietly, "Dad." There was silence. Then, a shaky breath. "Ryan." I can't explain the emotion in that one word. It was like all the years of distance and confusion collapsed at once. We talked for 2 hours that night. He told me about his new life, his wife, how he'd tried to find me, but couldn't without causing more trouble. He apologized for not fighting harder. I told him I understood now. That call didn't fix everything, but it was the first time in years that I felt like I wasn't alone. In the months that followed, things started to shift. I got promoted at work. My boss said he'd noticed a change in confidence. I started saving money again. I moved into a better apartment, one that didn't feel haunted by her presence. But the biggest change wasn't external, it was internal. I stopped needing her approval. I stopped explaining myself. And that quiet confidence started spilling into other parts of my life. Of course, she noticed. Manipulators always do when they lose their grip. One afternoon, I got a long text from her. "I know you think you're better off without me, but you'll regret cutting me out. I'm your mother. I'll always be your mother." I read it once, then deleted it. The truth was, I didn't hate her. I didn't even want revenge, at least not the kind she'd understand. My revenge was peace. My revenge was happiness she couldn't touch. But life has a strange way of circling back. Because just when I thought I'd finally put it all behind me, I got an unexpected call that brought everything full circle. It was from a number I didn't recognize. A woman's voice, nervous but polite, said, "Hi, is this Ryan Thompson? This is Amanda from First State Bank. We're reviewing a joint account application with your mother, and we just need to confirm your information." My blood ran cold. "Joint account?" I asked slowly. "Yes," the woman said. "Your name was listed as a secondary holder. We just need your signature to finalize it." I felt my pulse in my ears. She was still trying to use my name, still trying to pull me back in. But this time, I wasn't the same person she'd raised to feel small and scared. I thanked the woman, hung up, and opened the folder on my computer where I'd saved everything. The PayPal receipts, the messages, the voicemails, the fake HR emails. It had been months since I'd looked at them. But now, as I scrolled through, I realized I finally knew what to do. Because if she wanted to keep rewriting the story, then maybe it was time I wrote one of my own, one with the truth, not her lies. And I wasn't going to do it quietly this time. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat there in the dim glow of my laptop, scrolling through every screenshot, every bank statement, every message from my mother that had once made me feel guilty or crazy. Except now, for the first time, it all looked different. It wasn't random anymore. It was a pattern, one that stretched back years, maybe my entire life. And I finally had proof of it. For a while, I just stared at the folder I'd titled "For My Sanity." That's what it had been, originally, a collection of evidence I kept just to remind myself I wasn't imagining things. But now, looking at it, I realized it could be something much more powerful. It could be a weapon. I poured myself a coffee, opened a new document, and started typing. Dates, amounts, screenshots. I organized everything into a timeline. The Christmas charges. The fake email to my job. The time she used my name to apply for a credit card 2 years ago. One I'd let slide because she'd cried on the phone, swearing she'd cancel it. I cross-referenced everything with my bank statements, PayPal logs, and texts. By the time the sun came up, I had a 20-page document of evidence. But I wasn't rushing into anything this time. That was the old me, reactive, emotional, desperate for her to understand. The new me had learned that real revenge isn't loud. It's patient, precise. I decided to call Aunt Lisa again. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm but tired. "Ryan, everything okay?" "I think so," I said slowly. "But I need your help." I explained everything, the attempted joint account, the fake email, the financial manipulation. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, there was a long silence. "Ryan," she said finally, "I'm going to tell you something you probably don't want to hear. You can't fix her. You can't win by reasoning with her. The only way to stop her is to make sure she can't touch you again." "I know," I said. "That's why I'm done playing defense." Lisa sighed softly. "Then we do this right. No screaming matches, no dramatic confrontations. We protect you first, then we expose her." Over the next few weeks, Lisa helped me understand just how deep my mom's behavior went. She'd done this to others, old friends, ex-boyfriends, even distant cousins. Always the same story: manipulation, guilt, financial accidents. But no one ever fought back. They'd just fade away, too tired or embarrassed to confront her. Not this time. I started small. I contacted the bank that had called about the joint account and explained that I never gave permission for my name to be used. They froze the application and flagged it for potential fraud. Then, at Lisa's suggestion, I set up identity protection and credit monitoring, something I should have done years ago. Within a week, 2 more attempts popped up: a department store card and a car loan application under my name, both using my mother's email address. That's when I realized she wasn't just trying to control me. She was trying to own me financially. So I gathered more. I requested copies of my credit report from all 3 bureaus. I highlighted every suspicious inquiry and matched each one to a period where my mom had asked for help. Every time I'd lent her money, some mysterious charge appeared shortly after. A pattern so clear it almost looked intentional. Meanwhile, I kept playing the quiet son. When she texted, I'd reply with short, polite answers. Never confrontational, never emotional. I wanted her comfortable, predictable. Then one afternoon, I got exactly what I'd been waiting for. A message from her. "Hey, sweetheart, can you help me with something? I'm trying to rent a new place, but my credit isn't great. They said if I had a co-signer, it would go faster. You wouldn't mind helping your mom, would you?" I stared at that message for a long time. In the past, I would have felt that wave of guilt wash over me. The one that whispered, "She's your mom, just help her." But now, it only made me smile. Because this was exactly the opening I needed. I replied, "Of course, Mom. Send me the info." She texted back a few minutes later with a photo of the rental application. It wasn't a real rental form. It was a credit application disguised as one, the same trick she'd used before. But this time, instead of ignoring it, I sent the image straight to Lisa. "Got her," I wrote. Lisa called me that night. "Ryan, if she's falsifying documents and using your identity, that's not just family drama anymore. That's criminal." "I know," I said quietly. "And I'm not going to let her talk her way out of it this time." We decided to involve someone who actually knew what they were doing. Lisa's friend, Mark, was a retired lawyer who'd once specialized in fraud cases. She set up a meeting for us at his office, a cozy little place above a coffee shop downtown. Mark was the kind of man who spoke slowly but with precision, like he was measuring every word. He looked through my evidence file for nearly an hour, occasionally nodding, occasionally frowning. When he finally set it down, he said, "You have enough here to bury her. But the question is, do you want to?" I hesitated. I don't want to ruin her life. I just want her to stop ruining mine. He smiled faintly. "That's the right answer. But you'll need leverage. Something she can't lie her way around." "What kind of leverage?" I asked. He leaned back in his chair. "Proof she committed fraud in a way that affects an institution, not just you. Banks take that seriously. If she's been using your name or social security number for loans, you can file a report. That alone will scare her straight. But if she keeps going, we escalate. I nodded slowly. So, step 1, set the trap. Mark smiled knowingly. Exactly. Over the next 2 weeks, I laid the groundwork. I opened a new bank account solely for tracking her behavior. I even set up a dummy email address, one that looked like my personal one, but wasn't linked to anything real. Then I waited. Sure enough, she reached out again a few days later. Hey, honey, did you get a chance to look at the rental papers? The landlord said he just needs your info. I replied from the dummy email, pretending I'd filled everything out and asking her to send it back to verify. She did. Only this time, she'd altered it again, signing my name digitally on a form that included a fake income statement and credit reference. That was all I needed. I forwarded the document to Mark. She just forged my signature. He wrote back, "Good. Now don't do anything yet. Let's make sure she uses it." So I waited. A week later, I got an alert from my credit monitoring service. A new rental inquiry had been filed under my name. I sent the report to Mark, and he took care of the rest, filing a fraud notice and sending a formal cease and desist letter to the property management company, warning them of potential identity theft. Within days, the rental application was flagged. My mother's phone must have lit up like a Christmas tree because I started getting frantic texts almost immediately. "Ryan, what did you do? They're saying I committed fraud. Why would you go behind my back like this? I was just trying to get a place for us to live. You ruined everything." Every message was a performance, switching from guilt to rage to self-pity. But I didn't reply. Not yet. Because for the first time in my life, I had the upper hand, and I wasn't going to waste it. Instead, I quietly reached out to a few of the family members who'd stopped talking to me months ago. My cousin Ben, my grandmother, even Aunt Karen. I didn't argue or try to defend myself. I just sent them the proof, screenshots, transactions, and copies of the fraudulent documents. No explanations. No commentary. Just the truth. It took less than a day for the phone calls to start. Ben called first. "Ryan, man, I'm so sorry. I didn't know." Then Aunt Karen. "She told us you were stealing from her." Oh my God. Even Grandma left me a voicemail, her voice shaky. "Sweetheart, I had no idea what she was doing. Please forgive me." One by one, her supporters began to vanish. The network she'd built, all the people she'd manipulated into defending her, started unraveling. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger. The truth was doing the work for me. But even as satisfying as that was, I knew she wouldn't go down quietly. She'd spent decades perfecting her act, and cornered people do desperate things, which is why I needed to be ready, not just to expose her lies, but to protect myself from whatever came next. So I took one final precaution. I drafted an email addressed to every major relative, her landlord, and the HR department at my job. It included everything: her schemes, her messages, her manipulations. I didn't send it yet, but it sat there in my drafts folder, ready to go with one click. Because I knew her next move was coming. And when it did, I was going to be ready for it. I didn't have to wait long for her next move. It came exactly 9 days after the rental fraud incident, a Tuesday afternoon, around 3 o'clock. I was at work when I got an email from HR again. The subject line made my stomach drop: "Formal complaint regarding employee conduct." I clicked it open, heart pounding, but the moment I saw the attached document, I knew. It was another one of her creations. The same tone, the same long-winded sentences that tried too hard to sound professional. She'd written that I was emotionally unstable, verbally abusive toward family, and financially exploitative, claiming I'd stolen money from her and refused to pay it back. She even signed it with her full name, like that somehow made it credible. My boss had copied me in, writing, "Ryan, please come by my office when you have a moment to discuss this." I just stared at the screen for a while. I'd spent months rebuilding my reputation, my sanity, my life, and she was still trying to drag me down. The old me might have panicked, tried to defend myself immediately. But now, I felt something very different. A kind of eerie calm. Because this was it, the final move in a game I'd already won. I walked into my boss's office with my laptop under my arm. He looked awkward, almost embarrassed. "I'm really sorry, Ryan," he said. "But protocol says we have to at least acknowledge this kind of complaint." "No problem," I said, setting my laptop down. Actually, I was hoping this would happen. He blinked. You were. I opened the folder labeled "For My Sanity" and slid the entire collection across the desk. Every screenshot, every fraudulent charge, every message she'd ever sent. My mother's been attempting to commit financial fraud under my name for months. This email is just the latest attempt to discredit me after I stopped helping her. He skimmed the first few pages, then looked up, eyebrows raised. Ryan, this is insane. You've got her dead to rights. I know, I said quietly. All I need from you is to forward this to HR and mark her complaint as retaliatory. After that, I'll handle it. He nodded slowly, still looking at me like he wasn't sure whether to be impressed or horrified. You've got it. That evening, I sent one message, the one I'd been holding onto for weeks. I opened my drafts, double-checked every attachment, then hit send. It went to everyone, my entire extended family, her landlord, the property management company she'd tried to defraud, and even the HR department she'd emailed. The subject line was simple: the truth about my mother. Inside, I didn't rant or accuse. I just told the story, calmly, factually, with proof attached for every single claim. I included the PayPal transactions from Christmas, the forged rental documents, the identity theft attempts, and even the complaint email she'd just sent. I didn't add any emotion to it. Just evidence. Just truth. Then I logged off, set my phone face down, and went for a long walk. When I came back an hour later, my phone had over 60 notifications. Missed calls, texts, emails. It was chaos. Ben, holy crap, Ryan. She's losing it. Aunt Karen. She's calling everyone, screaming that you hacked her accounts. No one believes her anymore. Grandma. Sweetheart, I'm so sorry for everything I said. I should have known. Even Lisa texted, well done. Clean, effective, irreversible. I didn't reply to any of them. I just sat there in silence, feeling the strangest mix of sadness and relief. It didn't feel like victory, not in the way revenge fantasies make it look. It was quieter, heavier, but it was freedom. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from an unknown number. It was her. Her voice was trembling, but it wasn't apologetic. It was angry. You ruined me, Ryan, she said, voice cracking. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You're supposed to protect family, not destroy it. Do you have any idea what you've done? I didn't delete it. I saved it. One last reminder of who she really was. Later that day, Aunt Karen called. She said my mom had been dropped by her landlord. Apparently, the fraud warning from the bank had reached him, and he'd reported it to the authorities. There was talk of an investigation. Nobody in the family was speaking to her anymore. Even Emily, her favorite niece, had blocked her after realizing she'd been using her business name to funnel money. In less than 48 hours, her entire empire of manipulation collapsed. A week later, I got a letter from the bank confirming that her joint account attempts had been flagged and that she was now under review for identity misuse. I didn't celebrate. I just felt done. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like her shadow was over me. I didn't hear from her again for months. Not a text, not a call. Then one day, a letter arrived at my new apartment. I recognized her handwriting instantly. Neat, slanted, every Y looped perfectly. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won. Inside, it wasn't an apology. Not even close. It was 5 pages of justification. She blamed stress, money, her difficult childhood, everyone but herself. But at the very end, there was one line that stuck with me. You think you've won, but you'll realize one day that family doesn't disappear just because you want it to. I folded the letter carefully, put it back in the envelope, and locked it in the drawer of my desk. Not as a keepsake, as evidence, in case she ever tried anything again. But she never did. In the months that followed, life slowly rebuilt itself. My job went better than ever. I moved up to a senior position, bought my first car that didn't rattle, and even started seeing someone who didn't flinch when I told them the truth about my past. Every once in a while, I'd get updates through Lisa or Grandma. My mom had moved 2 towns over, living in a smaller place now. She'd started working part-time, apparently keeping to herself. It wasn't exactly justice in the cinematic sense, but it was real. She'd lost control, over me, over everyone. And the best part? I didn't have to destroy her to make it happen. I just had to stop protecting her lies. The family slowly began to heal too. My grandmother invited me over for dinner again, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel tense. My cousins apologized, awkwardly but sincerely. Even Aunt Karen sent me a long message thanking me for opening her eyes. I realized something important in all that. People like my mother thrive on silence, on everyone else's fear of confrontation. They build power by convincing others that speaking up will cause chaos. And maybe it does, for a little while. But silence causes something worse. When you finally speak, the world doesn't explode. It just clears. That next Christmas, I didn't go anywhere. No family dinners, no fake smiles, no pretending. I stayed home, made myself a proper meal, and invited Lisa over. We ate, watched an old movie, and laughed, really laughed, for the first time in what felt like years. At one point, she looked at me and said, "You know, I always wondered what would happen if someone finally stood up to her." "What do you think happened?" I asked. She smiled. "You broke the cycle. That's bigger than revenge." She was right. My revenge wasn't about payback anymore. It was about peace. About walking away without carrying her voice in my head. A few months later, I got one last surprise. An envelope arrived from my dad. Inside was a short note and an old photo. Me, about 6 years old, sitting on his shoulders at a park. The note read, "Lisa told me everything. I wish I'd been there sooner. But I'm proud of who you've become. Let's start fresh." I kept that photo on my fridge. Not as a reminder of what I lost, but of what I finally regained, my family, on my terms. Now, whenever I think back to that Christmas, the one she canceled, I don't feel bitterness anymore. I just see it for what it was, the beginning of the end of her control. She wanted me to believe that family was something you owed, no matter how much it cost you. But I learned something much better. Family isn't who demands your loyalty. It's who earns it. And when I finally understood that, Christmas stopped being canceled. It finally became mine.